Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new Nancy Drew analysis video. Today's video is brought to you by the patrons over at Mystique Manor and by all the official fellow detective channel members. If you too would like to support the channel and gain access to exclusive features, check out patreon.com/wizardkitten to become a patron, or click join next to the subscribe button to become an official fellow detective. In my last video, I got lots of requests to do a ranking video of Nancy's different money-making schemes throughout the Nancy Drew PC game series. I know I've received this request before, so thank you to everyone who encouraged me to make this video for the suggestion, and to Stray Kids Everywhere All Around for your comment on last week's video. Game version Nancy Drew has many fun quirks, one of the most notable being that she basically never brings money with her during her travels, international or otherwise. This is especially strange because Nancy comes from a pretty decent amount of money. Her father, Carson Drew, is a lawyer, and by all accounts, Nancy has no financial struggles, except apparently forgetfulness. Because she momentarily loses her sanity and travels sans cash, check, or credit, Nancy has to find ways to make money. In some games, like Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, she just trades favors and labor for things that she needs. But in many other games, especially in the Renaissance era, she takes on little side gigs or tries to make and sell products to come by some spending cash. To rank these various money-making schemes, I've identified 3 criteria. First, is the money-making scheme efficient? This is the most important criterion because it's the reason that the puzzle is included in the game in the first place. If it doesn't help Nancy make enough money to function in the game, then it's a useless addition. Second, is the money-making scheme appropriate for the setting of the game? Does it make sense given the game location, and does it add to the world building of that particular game? Basically, does the money-making scheme make sense? Third, is the money-making scheme fun? If making money is going to become an important part of the game, then it should be enjoyable and not feel like a chore. If the task is too tedious, detectives really start to wonder why Nancy just didn't bring money along in the first place. It should add to the game, not detract. For this ranking, I've only included money-making ventures that are sanctioned by the game, meaning that cheats or secret ways of making money are not included. This is because they aren't part of the story, nor are they something that every detective will experience when playing the game. I also only included schemes that earn money, and not some other form of currency, like pachinko in Shadow at the Water's Edge, where we earn marbles instead of coins. So, without further ado, let's get started. Number 14, Finding Coins, Multiple Games. This money-making scheme is not fun, it's not efficient, and it's not even that setting appropriate because really, how often do you actually find money just laying around? Not very often. This method doesn't add anything to the games and sort of just feels like an afterthought, especially because Nancy barely earns any money with this method. There's a reason that nearly every game that allows Nancy to find coins also has another way to make money, because this way simply isn't enough. Number 13, Shell Necklaces, Creature of Kapu Cave. This is really such a shame, because this money-making scheme has so much potential to be one of the best ways to make money in the series. It's setting appropriate because selling local souvenirs is absolutely a great way to make money in a tourist destination. It's also reasonably fun to scan the beach for shells and even more fun to string them together to make a necklace. So what's the problem with this scheme? It's so woefully inefficient that it basically becomes useless. Nancy can only find certain shells on the beach, which means she can only make certain necklaces. The only way to find the other shells is to buy snorkeling equipment, which isn't available until close to the end of the game. Even then, Nancy can only find limited quantities of necessary shells, and even needs to buy other shells from the shop to make certain necklaces. This scheme could have been absolutely brilliant, but was designed so poorly that it becomes null and void. Number 12, Flowers, Phantom of Venice. In Phantom of Venice, Nancy has the opportunity to buy an insect fumigator and use it to dispel the wasps surrounding Margarita Faubourg's flowers. She can then sell said flowers in the local market for some extra cash. While I like the idea of this puzzle, it's really only fun the first time. After that, it just becomes repetitive, especially because the flowers don't change at all. Maybe if we had a whole garden to work with, it might have actually been enjoyable. It's also inefficient because Nancy needs to spend money up front for the fumigator and constantly wait for the flowers to regrow. Finally, I don't even think this form of money makes much sense in Venice. Why not have Nancy work a shift in a restaurant like in Danger by Design, or work a gelato stand like she works the cookie stand in The Silent Spy? That at least would have been a way to get more culinary influence in a game that really should have had more in the first place. Number 11, Circuit Boards, Trail of the Twister. This scheme is admittedly quite efficient, but it's so tedious. Just like almost everything in Trail of the Twister, this feels like a random chore added to pad out game time. It doesn't feel thoughtful and doesn't make me think of tornadoes, Oklahoma, or anything else that the game is supposed to be about. It's also not realistic. Chase has a massive jar of paw pennies that he's willing to give away by the hundreds because Nancy put some annoying, unnecessary circuit boards together for him for an undefined purpose. I don't think so. Number 10, Learning Icelandic, Sea of Darkness. Just like the circuit boards, this method is quite efficient, and is the one I use the most when I'm trying to buy Ned Nickerson a replica sword. I do also appreciate that it helps us learn Icelandic words because that helps set the location of the game. But that's where my admiration ends. You really have to grind with this money-making scheme, which quickly detracts from the fun. It's slightly less tedious than the circuit boards, but not by much. It's also a really weird way to make money. In what situation would playing a language learning game earn you real currency? None that I know of. It's unrealistic, even if it is educational. Number 9, Dancing, Phantom of Venice. This is almost certainly the strangest money-making scheme that Nancy engages in as part of her adventures. Donning a catsuit and dancing for strangers in an international country is maybe not the idea that most of us would jump to, but the game does at least establish why we do this as part of the story. I also find this scheme to be legitimately fun and efficient. It can take some practice to do well, but dancing can be lucrative. It isn't, however, that realistic, especially since, as I mentioned before, there are so many other ideas the developers could have chosen that would have expressed Venice more fully and accurately. Let me work at a pizza restaurant, or even let me try singing as a gondolier with some sort of puzzle like the Bodron one in Haunting of Castle Malloy. There were just so many other options. That's all I'm saying. Number 8, Land Rush, Trail of the Twister. This money-making scheme is efficient. It doesn't take that long to play and results in a reasonably efficient amount of paw pennies. It's also pretty fun, but it does get old after a while though, and isn't as efficient as putting together Chase's dumb circuit boards. It's vaguely appropriate for the setting, and I appreciate that it's themed to match the game, but ultimately, it's still kind of a strange way to make money. It's basically gambling, which wouldn't normally be the most reliable way to make money. It also doesn't add to the game in any way. I think it would have made a lot more sense for Nancy to just be given a budget to work with by the Canute team, like when she purchases items for the Storm Kit. Why does she all of a sudden need to buy her own cheese for the mousetrap? It just doesn't seem necessary. Number 7, Raid, the Captive Curse. I legitimately enjoy playing Raid, and I think it's a really fun way to make money. I also appreciate that it is appropriate to the setting and helps with the Germany world building by being based on Grimm's fairy tales. It's maybe not that realistic, but paying volunteers to playtest a game is definitely a thing, so I'm not that mad about it. The problem with this scheme is that it's not that efficient. Raid can take a while to play, and the payout isn't that spectacular, so it's not structured as well as it could have been. I love it, but I also know that many fellow detectives don't, and I can understand why. Number 6, Fish Kitchen, Sea of Darkness. This money-making scheme is appropriate to the game and adds a neat bit of Icelandic culture to Nancy's experience. I wish the fish actually looked like how the food does in real life rather than just pictures, but c'est la vie. The reason this one doesn't rank higher, though, is because it comes with caveats. This money-making scheme is both fun and efficient, but only if you know what you're doing. If you figured out the logic system of this puzzle and get it, then it's a great time and you'll be making a good amount of money for your efforts. But if you don't, it's vocabulary game time instead, because otherwise you'll just keep racking your brain and getting nowhere with this one. It's hit or miss, for sure. Number 5, Fishing, Creature of Kapu Cave. Full disclosure, I do not find this money-making scheme particularly fun, but I know not everyone agrees. It's also not that bad because it's just so dang easy. Add bait, throw line, watch bobber, click water, bam, you caught a fish. And if you use decent enough bait, there's a pretty good chance that you'll get a more valuable catch. This method of earning money is pretty efficient, and even though you have to buy bait, you recoup your costs well enough. It's also perfectly appropriate for the setting, as catching some fish and selling them at a local market could totally earn you some spending cash in a tropical locale. Overall, it's not my favorite, and I don't think it's particularly enjoyable. But there's a certain amount of charm involved with fishing and listening to the crashing waves of the ocean while you disassociate from reality. Number 4, Telegrams, Secret of the Old Clock. I also am not particularly fond of this money-making scheme, but I do appreciate the world building that it allows for and just how appropriate it is as a money-making venture. It's a perfectly reasonable way to make money, and it's efficient enough for Nancy's needs within the game. What makes this better than fishing is the additional lines of dialogue that Nancy has with all of the telegram recipients. Not only are there fun nods to other classic media, the characters often speak in period-appropriate slang, which helps to establish the setting of the 1930s. Would I personally rather not deliver telegrams for money? Yes. But does it work for making money, and does it have some positives? For sure. Number 3, Jammy Dodgers, The Silent Spy. This is the first money-making scheme on this list that I can confidently say meets all 3 of my criteria. It's a lot of fun, and I genuinely enjoy making cookies and solving the little logic puzzles of each one. It's also really efficient. Nancy makes good money making cookies and can do so really quickly, especially once you get into the rhythm of things. Finally, it's appropriate to the setting and helps to set the scene by allowing us to make something popular in the region. This one gets the number 3 spot though because it's still just a little bit random. Nancy can sort of just randomly show up at the Jammy Dodgers stand and start making cookies. No experience, references, or interview required. It's just bam, cookie baking time. I can suspend reality enough to understand that this is in fact just a game, so it really doesn't bother me. However, if I have to make a ranking and separate the top 3, then so be it. Number 2, Painting, Danger by Design. This money-making scheme also meets all 3 criteria. Painting the reproductions in Square du Verkeland Park is a fun, simple, and honestly kind of relaxing way to make money. One doesn't need to stretch the imagination too far to feel like you're actually in Paris painting a Mona Lisa color by number. It's also efficient, especially once you know the color patterns and can quickly complete the paintings. Finally, it's appropriate to the setting. The reproductions celebrate the art culture of France, and cute, kitschy little souvenirs are absolutely a legitimate way to make money in Europe. It's still kind of random, like making the Jammy Dodgers in Scotland, but it's slightly less so because there's a defined reason for it. Nancy needs to visit the vendor's table anyway to peruse his wares, and he cannot easily paint reproductions himself, so he makes the offer. It's awfully convenient, but really not that difficult to imagine as a possibility. And finally, number 1, Barmaid, Haunting of Castle Malloy. Not only does this money-making scheme easily meet all of the criteria, it also doesn't have a strange or unrealistic setup. Nancy is set up for this job by Donald Delaney, who refuses to speak with her because he doesn't have his beloved crow's nest due to the Screaming Banshee Inn being short-staffed. Since she's already staying at Castle Malloy, it's not really that much of an imposition or stretch. Mixing the drinks is also really fun. I love flipping through the recipes and imagining how they taste in real life. I'm also a huge fan of any cooking puzzle, so that helps. This money-making scheme is also efficient. Nancy can make more than enough money to meet her needs with this puzzle. Finally, it's totally appropriate for the setting. Pub culture is a huge part of life in Ireland, so including the barmaid puzzle expands on the culture of the game location and helps build realism. It's just all around a fantastic way to make money. No complaints. So there you have it, fellow detectives, my ranking of the worst and best money-making ventures that Nancy uses throughout the series. Regardless of whether we believe that Nancy should be bringing money with her on her trips or not, some of these puzzles are legitimately quite fun and add a lot to their individual games. I'm curious, though, to hear what you think. Do you like when Nancy needs to make money, or do you find it tedious? Do you agree with my ranking? Were there any money-making ventures that I missed? Let a Wizard Kitten know in the comment section down below. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button or tipping me for the video with a super thanks next to the download button right beneath the video. If you would like to come join a fantastic group of fellow detectives at Mystique Manor as a patron for the channel, gain access to exclusive content, and support the making of more content like this, please check out patreon.com/wizardkitten. I also have channel memberships with exclusive badges and emojis to use during streams and in the comment section. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming an official fellow detective, click join next to the subscribe button. Please feel free to follow the channel on Instagram or Discord, linked in the description box down below. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Cozy Game content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.